together with Carol and Derry, will be covering that particular function for us. Let's get back into studio now. And joining me is Daniel Juma from the Global Peace Foundation. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
This is the last public holiday to be observed just before we get into the elections. What do you expect to come out of it?
Okay, thank you very much. I would like, on behalf of Global Peace, to wish every Kenyan a happy Madaraka Day. And as you heard, this is the last Madaraka Day before we go into the election. I think it is a very, very important day. And as they say, it's a day that the Lord has made, probably.
Yeah.
But we expect the leaders, especially His Excellency the President. And I'm happy that the leader of the opposition, Raila Odinga, is in Nyeri with the President today. So we would like them to, send a message of hope, a message of peace, a message of hope, and bring Kenyans together. Because as you know, every election year is always very exciting. And I don't know, Kenyans go crazy every time we approach election. And we don't think like Kenyans. We think like members of our parties.
And a particular tribe.
So ethnicity is one of the biggest problems we have had since independence. And I'm hoping that our leaders can be able to construct a nation. We need to really build the nation so that we don't destroy the fabric, of what made us Kenyans in the first place. So, I'm hopeful that the president's speech today and the speech from the opposition leader, if he speaks today, will be one that is directed to the people, to tell the people that the elections will be credible, will be free, transparent, and fair, and also to tell the people that, look, I am not worth dying for. I'm not worth killing for. We need to have elections that do not interfere with the lives of the Kenyan people. Yeah.
You've mentioned very fundamental things, that when we get into the electioneering period, Kenyans crawl back into their party cocoons or their ethnicity or their ethnic cocoons. At the Global Peace Foundation, what are some of the works that you are doing to ensure that for us this process would be a peaceful one?
Yes. At the Global Peace Foundation, our vision is basically that we are one. That we may come from different tribes, different races, but we are basically one family under God. And we have been carrying various campaigns, and working with various partners to be able to educate the Kenyan people on what is elections. Elections is something that is prescribed by the Constitution, that every 5 years we must go through this process. It was never designed to make people die or to make people fight. So one of the things that we are doing, the main thing that we're doing is basically educating the youth. Because as you know, the youth form basically the bigger percentage of the population of the country. And it is the youth that are vulnerable. So our programs have been basically targeted to the youth and the women. We believe that peace is not just absence of war, that peace is basically structural, that we have a big population of young people who don't have jobs, who are basically idle. And these idle youth are available for misuse by crooked politicians and right now even by the terrorists. So our work is basically targeting those youth, coming up with the youth and women empowerment programs to be able to keep them busy. You remember during 2008, I remember when 2008 election violence, I was in my office and I saw young people demonstrating on the street. Basically, I told myself, I am not there because I'm working. So ideally, if you can keep the youth in jobs, keep them in businesses, then they will not be available for misuse by the politicians. So our programs are basically targeted at that. And right now we are also working with various partners. For example, we are working with Kenya Daima on a program called Wajibu Wangu. So that Kenyans know that it is basically my responsibility to be able to keep the peace, to vote peacefully, and be able to, take part in it as a constitutional process.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's take a look at some of the activities we've seen all the way from the nomination exercise, party primaries we saw about a month or so ago, to now where they're presenting their papers to now graduate from aspirant to candidate after being cleared by the IEBC. How would you say that we are on the right track as far as the things that leaders are telling their people and the activities that we are seeing in all the political fronts?
At this stage, I would not want to be a prophet of doom, but it is very sad, how the nominations were conducted. But as you know, we are basically, we are a progressive nation. We are going there, and one of the things that we have done, and under Kenya Diamond, for example, we have had meetings with IEBC to encourage them, talk to them and encourage them to take the lead. I remember one of the meetings we had with the chairman of IEBC, Mr. Chebukati, was basically, we told him that this is the time that you need to be visible, telling the Kenyans, educating them about elections, because everyone is looking at IEBC. So this is your moment, IEBC. You need to seize the moment. You need to assure the country that the elections will be credible, the elections will be free, transparent, and fair. The nominations, I think we expected probably the nominations because parties don't have, appropriate capacity to conduct nominations. So I think moving forward, instead of even complaining, I think legislators, should already be crafting some new laws to make sure that future nominations are conducted by an independent body. For example, we can say the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. Change that act to ensure that this body actually conducts primaries, and then IEBC conducts elections, so that you don't leave parties on their own, to be able to make a mess like you saw. So, but we are happy that it basically ended the way it is. But as you know, again, it brought in a phenomenon of independent candidates. This country, we have a culture whereby people don't want to admit, defeat. So you see, most of them, all politicians always say that I was rigged out. No politician will say that I lost. So everyone said they were rigged out, and therefore they become independent. Yes. So.
But you've had meetings, as you say, you've had engagements with the IEBC, starting from the chairperson, Wafula Chebukati. Political parties are very fundamental in this whole process because it is from these parties and some of the messages they give their people that we experience violence, insightful remarks and all. Are you in plans to also hold engagements with these political parties, especially the leadership?
As you know, our parties in Kenya and Africa, basically, are not ideological formations. Political parties should be run by ideologies. And it's unfortunate that our parties are basically, the buses. They're basically vehicles to achieving power. But I think we're looking forward to a Kenya whereby, parties can be those organizations that actually educate the people on, for example, what do they stand for? For example, if you look at, parties in Europe, we have, for example, the Labour Party. They stand on certain issues, the Conservative on certain issues. But our parties basically are formed to be able to vie for elections.
Re-election vehicles.
For re-elections. And, of course, you've seen our politicians changing parties every now and then, So this is a culture which, again, we need leadership. We need legislative oversight to be able to say, fine, we can say we can have maybe 3 or 4 parties. But then we only put stringent rules to say that parties must have certain ideologies and they must follow through in those ideologies. And then the rules must be there, including the rules of how to conduct your nominations, the rules of how to keep peace. It's amazing. If you look at some of the code of ethics of some of these parties, they're very, very they're very, very thorough in terms of encouraging parties to make sure that they educate the people, that the people keep the peace. But somehow, even within these parties, these rules are not are not followed through.
So it only looks good on paper.
It looks good on paper. They're not followed through. That's why, again, the challenge is on the people, the members of the parties. You need to keep your parties in check. Make sure that your parties actually follow the rules that they're supposed to follow. So I think it is a good idea to be able to have a meeting with these parties. And I think in one of the meetings we had in Mombasa, I told the registrar of political parties, Lucy, maybe convene a meeting, or maybe a football match between the main parties, NASA and Jubilee, or a dance between members of NASA and Jubilee, so that Kenyans don't look at parties as enemies. I'm looking forward to a country whereby members of NASA and members of Jubilee can sit down, they can watch football together, they can actually, members of NASA can go, for example, to Jubilee Stronghold wearing their T-shirts and capes, and nothing happens to them, and vice versa. But unfortunately, in this country, we have transformed parties into hatred houses, whereby if you are a member of a party that I don't belong to, then I look at you as an enemy. So it is part of the political culture that we need to do. And I've been saying that we need to be able to civilize our politics so that people don't kill each other based on party differences.
All right.
Yes.
So that dance and football match would be very entertaining to watch.
Yes.
We're getting back into this discussion. Daniel Juma is from the Global Peace Foundation. We'll get back to this discussion even as we continue to monitor the Madaraka Day celebrations in Nyeri. President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to be in attendance together with opposition leader Raila Odinga.